Hello and welcome to Audiobook Connection, behind the scenes with the creative teams. I'm Becky Parker Geist and I'm your host. Audiobook Connection is your place to learn about the audiobook creative process and for authors to learn valuable tips on producing and marketing your audiobooks. This podcast is sponsored by Pro Audio Voices, helping great stories come alive through audiobook production and marketing. Thank you so much for joining me, all of you experts out there. And why do I refer to you as experts? Because each one of you who's listening to this podcast is an expert. Let's dive into how your particular expertise as an author can impact your marketing. Let's jump in. We're starting from the premise that each one of you, regardless of whatever your topic is, however successful or unsuccessful you may feel in your life, you are in fact an expert. And the first thing we want to do is own that, and then also to identify for yourself what your particular expertise may be. Now, if you're not thinking of yourself as an expert, I'll ask you this question. Who in the entire world knows more than you do about your life experience? Obviously, no one. Now, whether or not you value your life experience the way we hope that you do and will is in some ways irrelevant. Other people may value your experience even more than you have come to recognize in terms of how valuable it is, because there are others who would like to be able to learn from your experience, whether that's mistakes you've made so that they can avoid them, or things that you've done well, have turned out well for you so that you can make their life paths easier. Now, those are most often in the nonfiction realm, but that doesn't change when we move into the fiction realm. If you're a fiction author, maybe you are an expert at exploding the minds and imaginations of your followers, your listeners, your readers, opening up worlds of fantasy that they hadn't ever even been able to imagine, and you open those doors. And what does that do? That helps us break the molds and think about things in new ways, and that's really valuable. Maybe your fiction is crafted around real-life types of events, so people are actually learning about things like, let's say, the risks and world of cryptocurrency. And what are the risks and pitfalls that can happen in that part of life of the world? Maybe you write in the historical fiction realm, where what you're doing is both educating people about what has happened that we can learn from, and also open their minds to new ways of thinking about things and people and relationships that can make life better going forward. There are so many ways, literally an infinite number of ways in which you may be an expert in a certain set of areas, or set of content. And let's start from that place. You are an expert. Most of the authors that I speak to, their biggest goal, or at least one of their biggest goals, most often it's the top goal, is to have an impact in the world, for their audiobook to be listened to by many people so that they have this impact, whatever that particular impact might be. As an expert, you are providing that value so that you can have that impact. And so here's the question that I would ask you next. What is your expertise? And that may probably will, take you some time to really think through, really meditate on that, really let it marinate in your mind. What is your expertise? How does your expertise help others? Who wants that help? that you could and do offer through your writing. And once you've identified these, then you may want to ask, how else, what additional kinds of content could you provide that could be helpful, more helpful, offer even more of a similar kind of value, or even the same value, but in slightly different chunks or a slight variation on what you've created in your book? These are the big questions. These are the foundational questions for your marketing. Maybe you've even heard it on this podcast, because I know I've talked about it and have interviewed people about it. But the importance of knowing who your target audience is, or your target market. Who are those people that are looking for, listening for your particular content and expertise? Knowing that, identifying that audience is invaluable. So many authors, when asked, who is your book for, will say it's for everyone. Well, no book is for everyone. And trying to market a book to everyone is an impossible task, because when you're trying to speak to everyone, you end up speaking to no one. You may have heard about niche marketing and how that's an effective way to market. Well, let's apply that just even to the basic questions I was asking earlier about how does your expertise help, and how does it help your following? Well, if you have to answer that question with an audience as broad as everyone, then you can get a feeling for how difficult that is, impossible, really, that is to answer. So the clearer you can get about who it is that you are speaking to, if you will, with your author voice, the better off you're going to be and the easier time you're going to have with marketing. So let's get into the next step. We're thinking about how else you can provide value. And that really is the key to marketing these days, is providing value. And usually, and what most people expect and are looking for and hoping for and counting on, is that you're going to be willing to provide value that doesn't cost them something right at the front end. Because if you're going to charge them something right off the bat, before they know anything about you, whether they have had any chance to evaluate the quality of your content, they're just going to move on to somebody else. So there is an element, a factor of trust that comes into play here. At least that's the way I see it. Is I talk with authors about sometimes who are hesitant to give away their content, and I don't mean give away all of their books and audiobooks. I'm not talking about that, but I mean that there is a nervousness, a hesitancy to give away their expertise that they have developed, that they have maybe spent a lot of money and a lot of time and a lot of energy in their lives to develop. And the idea of giving it away, especially and probably particularly if they are feeling a financial struggle themselves at that point in their lives, the idea of giving it away comes really hard. And that's why I say it can take a level of trust, the element of trust, to be able to let go and trust that your giving will be reciprocated in some way that will be meaningful to you. Let's take a short pause. We'll come right back and talk some more I'll share some of my own journey in this learning process and some experiences that I've had, and also what you can do going forward to really step into this fullness of your expertise. We'll be right back. Here at Pro Audio Voices, we love working with authors who have a big goal in mind. They really want to reach out to their audience around the world. We're here to help make that happen. It starts with our pre-production process, where we're evaluating and determining what elements of the audiobook we can leverage to both create an excellent listener experience for your listeners, as well as drawing them to your website to engage with you further. It continues on through the production process, making decisions that will enhance and support your big goals, as well as creating a great listener experience. But we don't stop there. Once the audiobook is live, we move on to helping you market your audiobook with the Audiobook Marketing Program. Come check us out at proaudiovoices.com. To schedule a call to talk about your audiobook project, click on Get Started. And we're back. We've been talking about value and you as an expert being able to provide value to the people in the world who are your target audience. So identifying your own expertise and then how that can have an impact in the world, who you can best help with that impact. And now let's step into what this new way of looking at things, if it is new for you, can mean for your marketing. Well, the first thing is in terms of that providing additional value. That can be done in many ways and is done in many ways for different authors. It might mean for you that you're going to host your own podcast. It might mean you're going to keep a regular blog going. And whether that's on any of these in terms of the frequency, that is not the question here. The question is for you, what will best serve you and your audience? If I'm just looking at those two as options, and we'll talk about more, but those two, you will need to make some of those technical decisions about, or logistical decisions about frequency that you're going to post and what that means for you. Like on a podcast, are you going to interview people? Are you going to be just providing kind of tips and content in a one-person episode like I'm doing in this particular one? How would you be running those things? And the adjunct question is, where is your audience spending their time? The more you know about your audience and where they hang out or what they like to do, the better. So if you know that your audience, or if you can figure out whether your audience tends to read blogs or tends to listen to podcasts, whether they watch video podcasts on YouTube or whether they're more likely to listen to audio podcasts. You might be asking yourself, well, how am I going to find that out? I'm going to give you the simplest possible answer. You ask them. Yes, it is, or it can be that simple. And you might be asking, who do you ask? Well, you're going to ask the people that you know are already following you. If you're just getting started and maybe you have an email list of 10 people, well, ask them. And if you know their phone numbers and you feel comfortable on the phone, give them a call and just ask them these questions. And you can tell them why. It doesn't have to be a secret. You're trying to find more wonderful people just like them who are interested in the same kind of content that they are. And people are generally pretty open and willing to share when you are open and willing to share and willing to ask those folks. So that's a couple possibilities for ways that you can create more content and get that out into the world. So a podcast or a blog. Another way is through social media, and lots of people are providing great content through social media, all kinds of platforms, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, whatever, LinkedIn. You, again, want to figure out, is this platform where my audience tends to hang out? These are questions you can ask them. And you can look at where is your following. If you're not wanting to go onto Facebook, Meta, Instagram, whatever, that's fine. If it makes you uncomfortable and you don't want to be there, then trying to build an audience there doesn't really make sense, does it? Because you want to be happy as well, right? But you want to find out where are they, and then maybe test out some content on the platform or platforms that feel like a fit for you, and see how that goes, see how it feels. Give it a try, and who knows? You might surprise yourself and discover that it's actually fun after all. Or you might come to the conclusion that, nope, it's not for you after all. And then you may want to look at a different avenue that might be a better fit. Social media posts can be a really great way to provide that free content to your potential audience. What I have been discovering recently, and this is with the help of my wonderful team, we've been discovering that TikTok is actually a really great platform for us, and that me posting short videos that are providing content about audiobook production and distribution, ways that authors can earn higher royalties from their audiobooks, all of these kinds of things, my author following is really enjoying. They're engaging with that material. And that is different from some of our previous social media where we've been more posting, let's say, like about our clients' books, where we're putting the word out and creating a kind of social media launch, but not necessarily reaching their audience in the way that we wanted to reach them. Or even just putting out some content that may have felt a little bit more like a sales pitch or a little bit more like an offer or a promotion. Those kinds of posts really only work well when there has been a longer-term relationship that is built through that social media. So we're finding in our own journey that this is making a huge difference, that we're actually being able to reach people in a different way, in a much more effective way. And that's exciting because one of our core values is impact. We want to make a difference in the world. And the only way we can do that is by effectively connecting with authors and helping them with their projects so that their projects can also have an impact in the world. So we're building relationships. We're identifying the questions that are being asked by the people who are in our target audience and trying to answer them, trying to give them the information that they need, not trying to charge for it, just trying to get that information out there to be a helpful company, a helpful team, a helpful person in the world, sharing our expertise with the world. And I was thinking today about relationships, about building relationships and how central that is to not only like enjoyment of life, but really to success in all different arenas. I'm assuming that most of you and I are independently published authors, and that title, independent, can sometimes, I think, lead us to think that we are supposed to do it all by ourselves. And yet that doesn't really work out very well. If we're trying to do it all ourselves, then we're not building the kinds of relationships that can be really rewarding and very valuable as well. Things like connecting with other authors who have a similar audience and working with them to better understand their expertise and helping them understand yours and figuring out, well, how can we work together to build an audience together, our following together? This is the beginning of some powerful synergy, especially when you are focused on that content creation. I have talked about in other episodes about the value of cross-promotion. And I am feeling like maybe I should have highlighted or underlined more fully that cross-promotion works best when you are first building cross-relationships, developing the relationships with other authors so that when you do promote your book to your friends, your colleagues, audience, that it comes out of relationship, not out of the blue. And I just want to wrap up with the idea that it is worth it to you to commit to the journey. Most authors want to have an impact, so do it. Do it through your own commitment to your own expertise and the message that you have to share in the world. If this content that I'm providing in the Audiobook Connection podcast is of value to you, I encourage you strongly to go to our website, proaudiovoices.com, sign up for our email newsletter so that we can be providing value to you on a regular basis. We are also just about to launch our Patreon account, which is going to be patreon.com at Audiobook Connection Podcast. And we would be greatly honored and so appreciative if this podcast is providing value to you and you are able to contribute $5 a month to help it keep going. We have a special deal for our Patreon members, and that is that you can post your questions there and get them answered directly. So it's like having an audiobook expert ready to answer your questions at any time that you have them. So we would deeply appreciate your support if that's something that you're able to do. If you have a book that you're ready to put into audio and you're ready to take the deep dive into a strategy call with our team for your own audiobook, I encourage you to schedule a call at proaudiovoices.com. Thanks so much for listening. Have an awesome day. Thanks for joining us for Audiobook Connection, behind the scenes with the creative teams. Please take a moment to subscribe at audiobookconnection.com. The podcast is sponsored by Pro Audio Voices, helping great stories come alive through audiobook production and marketing. Learn more at proaudiovoices.com. Again, thanks for being with us, and please join us next week.
This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.